All right, I'm hitting record. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm going to share my screen. And the first page is just an introduction about me. My name is Margaret Curley. I am Therapy Travelers Clinical Manager. It is a relatively new position so that I can support everybody in the clinical field answering questions and supporting the relationship managers and the schools. If you've been to any of my previous webinars, you know that I've been working as a licensed SLP for more than 20 years and as a teletherapist for 7 years. I live in New York and I love the reverse time shift. It's the best. West Coast has been very active in using teletherapists, more so than the East Coast, but I've also worked in Maine, upstate New York, Vermont, kind of the remote areas. So if you have any questions about getting additional licenses, you can message me in Margaret's Corner. Today's webinar is called March 2021 In-Person School Reopening and Beyond. Besides being the clinical manager, I also am a working SLP, and I, like you, have been working with students during this, and I think the students have learned a lot. I think the parents have learned a lot. I think teachers have learned a lot, principals, school districts, everybody. So when you might read in the paper that they're worried about students and having not learned enough during this year, I think they've just learned different things. Yes, there might be areas that need to be caught up on, but I'm proud of everybody. I hope you are too. So this presentation is talking about what we do to get back to face-to-face, what it's going to look like, what has changed, and what might change in the future. It's an interactive presentation, so on the next slide is the first one. So in the comments section at the top right, if you want to add any comments about what you think, in your opinion, what has worked this year. These are a couple of my ideas, but I hope there's somebody brave enough to put something in the comments. I think that the Zoom IEP meetings were really useful. Some of my previous schools, the attendance rate for the parents, working parents, was very low. So now with Zoom IEP meetings, there was real participation, which I thought was great. And like I said at the beginning, I think that students, parents, teachers, everybody learned so much about educational technology. I like both asynchronous and synchronous learning. I did live Google Meets, and I also did assignments to my students. And one of the feedbacks that I got from parents is this was the first time in quite a long time that they saw what their children were learning and how their children were learning, whether it was in an assignment or whether it was in the live meets that they could hear going on during the daytime. I also believe in technology. Like I said, I've been doing teletherapy for several years, and technology is the students' present and their future. And before COVID, students were playing with technology for recreational purposes, but now they're using it for educational purposes. and as young as kindergartners, even pre-K. So somebody wrote, let's see, students with social anxiety were relieved to be able to focus on academics without that pressure. I completely agree. That's going to be in a slide further down, that some students did awesome, like really good. I had one student whose mother commented that because she was at home, she was able to increase her reading skills at a much faster rate than what she had witnessed years prior or 1 year prior. So thank you for that, Abigail. Anybody else? I'm sure more things will pop up along the way. Something else in slide number 4 that I think worked well was, besides the IEP meetings, I use Q Global and WPS evaluation systems to do all of my evals. My school district only does articulation remotely, but prior to this school district, I also did remote language evals, fluency evals, and I believe that they were reliable. I believe that they were effective. During my IEP meetings that I was the case manager, I was able to have the IEP translated for the parents. I have some Spanish-speaking families. I also have some Korean-spoken families, and having that written down was helpful. Slide number 5, should things go back to normal? Again, if you want to, feel free to comment in the comment section. These are, again, just my ideas, my opinion, but I'd love to hear everybody else's. Yes, it should definitely go back to normal because parents need to work. I think that's first and foremost. Many parents had difficulty doing both, myself included. I'm a working mom. Many of my young students sat at the table and their parents sat with them during all of their live meets. So they needed their parents. They needed an adult to help them learn this year. So that needs to go back to in class. Another issue was older students weren't seated. Cameras were not on. They weren't necessarily paying attention. They were clicking on other tabs. I think my 16-year-old could check all of those boxes at one point in time. Students definitely missed each other, missed playing with each other. The older students work and learn cooperatively. The social emotional aspect is part of going to school, and that was definitely missed and has to be returned back to. I had some parents complain that eyes and bodies were tired in front of the computer screens, so there has to be, more papers, more standing up, more just moving around. Even if we move around in a classroom or as a group from one location to the next location, they have to get away from the computers, so I understand that. And then lastly, some students, as everybody knows, did not do so great. Some of them did awful. Some of them didn't have the bandwidth, didn't have the parents with computer skills. So what about the argument for not going back to normal? As somebody mentioned, some students did really well, and I gave an example. Computers are the present and future, absolutely. I really like the fact that GC is my shortcut for Google Classroom. I was a co-teacher and I had access to each of my students' classrooms. So I got to see their grade level homework and assignments. So if they had something in ELA that I could also use for articulation, or I could reinforce for grammar, or I could use for language analysis to answer questions, I used the class assignments. So I think it was, you know, more of a team than some of the schools that I worked with, where teachers did their stuff, I did my stuff. um, Another reason why we shouldn't go back to normal and we should progress from this is we are now more aware of overall needs. So in the household, uh, there's more need, and if a child's not supported in the household in whatever fashion, whether it's food, whether it's, like I said, bandwidth, whether it's anything, then the school would benefit to knowing that information and trying to reach out and provide more support. And then lastly, rushing around 5 days a week to learn for 3 hours is exhausting for everybody. So even though we were all stuck in our houses, I think to a certain degree, a lot of teachers worked really hard this year, but the running around, you know, everything has its good and bad to weigh. Slide number 6 is another interactive. Who wants to share their thoughts and tell me what your concerns are? My ideas are, of course, top is the safety of the staff, safety of the students. Number 2, need more professional development. I am very comfortable in using the computer, but I know a lot of therapists and teachers want to learn more. And I want to be that support for them. I really do, because we're all working hard for our students, and it feels awful when they know more than us. And you know that they know more than us. The teenagers, they know way more technology than they do. And it changes, you know, like the it thing, the it technology changes like weekly, monthly. Thank goodness I have a 16-year-old who at least tells me and keeps me in the know right now. And then lastly is materials. Everybody needs to know what websites, what videos, you know, how to get paper materials onto the computer to share with students. And it doesn't matter whether it's OT, special ed teacher, speech. We all are always searching for materials. Now on to the classroom. What will the classrooms, what will the school districts do immediately? I live in New York, like I said, and my daughter, my school district has been 2 days on, 2 days off since October. And then they have been full-time, face-to-face since November, with breaks at winter break and after New Year's break, because they knew, I guess they just anticipated that the infection rate would go up because of the potential of family gatherings and whatnot. So we've had a couple of weeks in between since November where students were remote full-time, but mostly they've been in the classroom. So we have barriers. If you can see in the picture, it might be hard to see, but the plastic barriers on the desks. We have cohorts where the classrooms are stay together. The older students have shifted time slots to move around the school. Other ideas have been related service continue to be virtual. My question is, does every school intend to give their students the computer to keep, or not to keep, but to use at least towards the end of the year or even use next year? I think it's beneficial, but we'll have to wait and see. I say it all the time, every state is different, every school district is different, every school within the school district, depending on the principal, is different. So wait and see, right? And then the last thing is, should students continue to use the computer through the day during specific times of day or during specific activities? My idea is we should continue to use computers where we see fit. Everybody needs hands-on activities. Everybody needs writing activities, but we can't just, now that COVID is over, abandon our computers and stop using Google Classroom, stop posting things. I think it's been really beneficial. So that's my hope. Slide number 8 is example of a school district as they return full-time face-to-face and all of the things that they are requiring in order to keep the safety measures in place. And you can read through this. A lot of it is obvious stuff, and then other things are providing information. Like, I'm happy to see laptops and headphones can be utilized by any student while on campus. I think that's a great idea. Laptops will be available for students. I was happy to see that. And then the obvious frequent hand washing 6 feet apart, wearing a mask. Slide number 9 is the safety strategies when you're in the classroom. And these are just some ideas. The songs and the videos are for the younger kiddos in elementary school, but who doesn't love Baby Shark? I mean, my 16-year-old loves Baby Shark. So there's a wash your hands to Baby Shark. There is spread your wings like a bird to keep your social distance, wear superhero masks, and then other things that are, you know, just trying to create a more social, emotional, peaceful learning environment, which, according to the experts, we will have a lot of adults and students who are happy to be back in class, but it has raised the anxiety levels. So I think that's something all the schools will be looking at this upcoming year, is how to continue to address the social emotional aspect while in the school. And then the very last one, it says, we at Therapy Travelers are here to help. And that's what my job is. Reach out to me whenever you have a question that is therapeutic or need to brainstorm. I'm a great brainstormer. 2 heads are better than 1. So if you're encountering a challenge, that's what I'm here for. So slide number 10 is what the educational leaders are thinking. And I made a joke when I was writing this that I am a ferocious reader. I read everything in education. Sadly, I don't have many recreational hobbies, but education seems to be my recreational hobby. So I read everything so you don't have to. My joke is my family wishes I was more passionate about cooking dinner or cooking of any sort, but that's not it. So the educational leaders are thinking remote learning is here to stay. I keep saying it over and over. I believe that to be true because computers are everywhere. Babies know how to operate mom and dad's cell phone. They know which button to push. They know what song to locate. And so we have to, capitalize on it. They say school choice and vouchers will blossom. Homeschooling will mushroom, which I'll be curious to see. Sports will uncouple. That doesn't really apply to me, at least, or us. Teachers union will change. That's a prediction. Private, public partnerships will flourish. I thought this was fascinating. Agencies will be utilized by school districts more and more for things like special ed teachers, remote learning, nursing, and then it has other areas like food service and maintenance. So I can understand it. It makes sense to me. And then mass customization of schooling will be the norm for students. So again, I think we're working towards what works best for students as an individual, Slide number 11. The reason why I think technology is here to stay is because 60% of students today between the ages of 6 and 18 say they like to collaborate and share their knowledge with others online, which is why all of those games are so popular, because when they're playing a game, they are also instant messaging each other, they're talking to each other, they're sharing ideas, they're visiting each other. And that's how they socialize, but that's also how they learn. 93% of students feel confident that they understand technology well. Wouldn't it be great if teachers had that same high statistic? And then 50% can't live without YouTube. And I think YouTube and even TikTok, because there's a teacher area for TikTok, there's a lot of great information out there. And there's a lot of great companies who are making online videos that are just so smart and quick sharing of educational information. And I have some lower in the presentation. So a couple of slides from now, I'll go through that. So let's start with the young ones. Slide number 12 is talking about educational, and I highlight educational. Educational computer skills should start in pre-K and kindergarten. There are websites that teach typing or mouse movement, but do it in an educational fashion. So while my students have a goal of language enrichment as a speech teacher, I can use the pre-K and K websites and overlap it with their speech goal so that they're learning two things at the same time. I have two examples. I have a student who I call Caden, who is a language enrichment pre-K student, and he does his speech with his dad alongside him. So his dad is being coached by me. I'm providing the videos and the language and the areas that the student should be learning at this point in his life. And I send dad the videos, I send dad some pictures, I send dad some worksheets and some websites, and then he does it during the week. So not only is the student getting 2 times 30 of live speech with me, dad's also playing the video cast to his television during the week. And I know that he's doing it because when I come back on the next Thursday, he asked for the same song and he already knows the words to the song. And it just warms my heart because it's more carryover than I've ever seen prior to this. I have another student who I call Lucy, who has a K&G problem, issue, doesn't make the correct sounds. And I do the exact same thing. And mom has said that the amount of progress that she has made since COVID has been remarkable. And I credit it for the same reason. I provide the coaching. I play with them in my session with mom sitting next to her. It's just like a doctor's appointment. You know, you have to take your children to the doctor and you have to sit there. So if you sign up for speech, it's a great idea to sit there, and mom's learned something, Lucy has learned something, and they practice it in the car, they practice it in the bathtub, they practice it while mom's making dinner, and the progress has been fast. So that's the young ones. Now let's move on to slide number 13, which is the elementary school, the K through 6s. I love that I can share my Google Slides like I'm sharing with you. I share them with my students, and they work in real time on the same slide that I do. Some teachers use Teachers Pay Teachers, TPT, or boom cards, or digital SLP. I think that they're wonderful, and that's, you know, a great resource. My only concern is sometimes I think that it's not curriculum based. So I like it for the play, but I would always look at the material. I would look at the vocabulary, because even if you have a 4th grader who still has a S and Z sound lisp, they shouldn't be working on the same vocabulary words on boom cards as your 1st grader who still has an who has an S and Z problem, issue, whatever you want to call it. So I just want to encourage everybody, and again, further in the slides, I will give you some ideas as to where to find materials that are grade level curriculum based. I use Jamboard. I have a group of 2nd graders that we use Jamboard together. And I think I set up the Jamboard. Here's an example of the Jamboard. Marianne, give me a thumbs up if you saw that I moved slides. Do you see the slide change? Thank you. I appreciate your camera on, because I always call somebody who has their camera on. So I'm in Jamboard, and my students can follow along and they can move things themselves. And they move to the noun, and you know, they do cute little things, and we practice the C in corn. It doesn't matter. I mean, I use anything to work on their skills. Like this screen is working on the grammar, but it's also working on the speech sound. You know, is there Are they producing the K in like? Can they read like? Do they know that popcorn is a compound word? You know, so I can use anything and make it into a speech goal. Here's another one that the students can operate themselves. And they drag the letter, and then I ask them to, Kaden, I'm going to say, okay, use the K sound for me. We're working on the blend. Now I want to hear you say red crab, and then I want you to make a sentence about the picture you see. You know, the red crab has really big eyes. And everybody can go around and everybody can say something different. Uh, the red crab has 6 legs. So I'm working at the word level, I'm working at the sentence level. They are manipulating the things so they are staying engaged. And I reinforce every student who does something. One of my reinforcers is the very old at this point. We either do the wave for the student who did well, we do the dab for the student who did well. We tell every student, everybody take your hand and pat yourself on the back. If I have a group of 4 students, we've done the give everybody a high five, and they look at the camera and they see who they're next to and who they can give a high five to. And they all giggle. I mean, it's just, you know, keeping them happy and engaged and silliness and wanting to come back for more. And then further along, there's more sentences. And these are all, I do tic-tac-toe with the students. We're working on the, I think this is the R's, banana cream pie, and every student gets an X or an O, and they can manipulate it and they say it and they put it into a sentence. So this is my Jamboard. And this is the K through 6. And the 6th graders have just as much fun with my matching games, but first they have to do their work. First, if they're working on their speech sounds, then we work on one of their classroom worksheets and we work on the speech sounds. If they're working on reading analysis, then they do their reading, we answer the questions, we talk about the figurative language. And then 5 minutes at the end, you want to play a game? We'll play a great game. Fantastic. For the students who are practicing their letter sounds, I also have 2 students who have a fluency goal. I use something called Flipgrid, which you may or may not be familiar with. It is basically public speaking practice in front of a camera, and they tape themselves. And if the parents are concerned about their privacy, you can white out their face. You can put a smiley face in front so all you hear is the voice. But you can record yourself several times, as many times as you want. And they're practicing their fluency, they're reading fluency, they're practicing my fluency goal of, okay, small breath after a comma, big breath after a period or a question mark. So again, not that they're just practicing in class, but they're getting some assignment that's kind of fun, because who doesn't like taping themselves, or who doesn't like taking a picture of themselves these days? And then they send it to me and I get to see it and I get to hear it. And I respond to it. You know, I send them back a smiley face, a great job, that kind of thing. Slide number 4 is a homework choice board, which I don't do for homework. We do it in class, and everybody gets to pick. If they're working on nouns, then they're going to be in Jamboard, and they're going, you know, Caden is going to be page number 1, and he's decided to do something from column A. And Elizabeth is in Jamboard, and she gets slide number 2, and she gets to pick something from column B or whatever she likes. She can choose anything. And if they need help, I'm there immediately. Like if she's looking for, if she's working on her S sound, or and she has to write down some words that have syllables, then I help her think of syllable, multiple syllable words. But everybody gets to share it, once they have 5 or 10 minutes to think something on their own or ask me a question, and then they practice it and they share it with me when they're done. So that's choice boards. Next one. Slide 15 is coaching the upper grades. I love the upper grades. Maybe because I have a snarky 16-year-old, but it's all about rewards for them. Do your work, and then you get a reward. So that's how I get them to get their work done. But what I also want to teach them, again, whether you're a special ed teacher or whether you're a speech teacher, is I also want to teach them where to find the answers for things. This is technology. So do they know the website? I mean, they all know Google, obviously, but do you know that there are great websites? Like there is a Idiom for Kids website. There is Word Hippo, which has synonyms, antonyms, pronunciations, things like that. And the students don't just need to learn, but they have to learn how to learn. So that's why I enjoy working with the upper grades. Slide number 16. Oh my goodness. I have 31 slides in total and I'm halfway done. So I might have to go a little faster. Okay, slide number 16, what we need to do. I would like students to have more support in prepping their computers, and that's learning how to split their screens, using a translation app. I have students who don't speak a second language, but I still use translation.google because you can highlight a passage, put it into translate.google, listen to the passage, then you go back and you read the passage. You can even put a word that you don't know how to pronounce and it'll say it out loud to you. There's also another column where you can practice saying a word that you don't know how to pronounce. So there's lots of things that they could learn to do. Of course, the read aloud apps, the dyslexia fonts, the snippet tools, and of course, all of the school approved websites. There are so many websites that every school district uses. So at the end of every session, I usually ask my students what new thing that they learned. And sometimes it's a tech trick. Sometimes I have talked them through getting a new extension onto their computer to help them. Sometimes it's just a new vocabulary word, or teaching them when to say, yeah, what does that mean? Instead of just reading over it and brushing over it. Yeah, I don't know what that means. And I always tell them, well, do you know what that means? No. Well, that's what I'm here for. All you have to do is stop and say, Miss Margaret, I don't know what that means. And then the other thing is a reading comprehension trick. I was telling one of my students the other day that when you get back into the classroom and you have paper to read and a question answer, if you separate it from the staples and you put them right next to each other, And he's like, are we allowed to do that? I was like, yes, check with your teacher, but yes, in order to look back at your answers to make sure that your answers are correct, wouldn't it be easier if they were right next door to each other? Just like what I do is I split my screen. On my left-hand side, when I do continuing ed, on my left-hand side is the lecture or the reading, and on the right-hand side is the questions. So as soon as I hear the answer, I'm checking off the answer to the questions. So I encourage to look for things that you can play, the educational games to play. I talked a lot about coaching the students and coaching the parents, flipping the classroom with videos, and then easy self-paced materials. I have an example. This is one of my assignments. This was a very long assignment. I don't give nearly as many as this, but this was one of my assignments to my 3rd and 4th graders back in February. And for the students who are working on their letter sounds, here are grade level words that they can practice, and they can use Flipgrid and just say the word or put the word into a sentence and make sure that they're using their best R sounds. And then I have, for the students who are working on grammar, here's a grammar practice. Same thing, they could use Flipgrid, or they can choose to circle their answer. Which one is the comparative adjective? And these are all manipulatives. And this is a classroom teacher's activity. So because I was the co-teacher, I used her classroom activity. And then lastly is a reading for my comprehension students. And today's lesson was about drawing conclusions. So we did the reading together, and then we answered the questions together. So that's what I mean by self-paced materials. Slide number 17 is Guardian's Guide to Tools for Children and Parents. One of my students told me in his IEP meeting that he uses Siri, or he uses Hey Google, and he's a bilingual student, or his parents speak Spanish, so he doesn't always know how to spell something. So he goes, Hey Google, how do you spell government? And I thought, kids are so much smarter than us adults. And we made him promise that he doesn't say, Hey Google, what's 132 times 32? He doesn't do it to get the answers. He actually does it in order to help himself. And that's what all of these guides are. So on here is translate.google. There's also a pronounce.google. The Google Translate on the phone is fantastic. And then of course I talked about the Open Dyslexia, the snippet tools, and I talk about the Purple Monster. And this is an add-on that I have on the top of my computer, and it just highlights a text, or it highlights a word for a student. I have a 5th grader who struggles with reading, and she uses the Purple Monster when she doesn't know the meaning, doesn't know how to pronounce one of these multisyllabic words. And then her reading has improved because she's no longer guessing what the word is, and therefore she's able to answer the question because she now understands the text better. So the biggest question, slide number 18, where do you find materials? And I love my magnifying glass. And I say, there's a ton of free content online everywhere. You just have to know where to find it. So at Therapy Travelers, I will do some postings of some websites that I like. And again, I will talk about it in a little bit. But there's a teacher called Teresa Wills, and it's on the bottom at the notes section. She does amazing webinars and interactive slides. She's a teletherapist, just like I am, or she's a tele-teacher. And she's really great. Pocket Full of Primary is a YouTube channel with a young 20-something, 27-year-old fourth grade teacher. And she talks about making Google slide decks or PowerPoints, how to teach remote, how to teach hybrid. And then if you need help with learning about educational apps and websites like Flipgrid or Google Classroom, that kind of thing, Flipped Classroom Tutorials is on YouTube, and that's really great. And my favorite one of all, on slide number 19, is called Z Library. And I'll pull it up right now. So Z Library is an ebook library that's for free, although they're having a fundraiser, and I donate to them all the time because I use it all the time. And if you put in anything, I put in grade 2, and as you can see, what comes up for me is grade 2 spelling, grade 2 grammar, grade 2 comprehension. You can click on any of these. Grade 2 high-low reading. So let's just pick spelling. And here's all these free books. You don't need an account or anything. And I use spelling words as my artic words, because by 2nd grade, they should be able to read it as well. So I don't download it. I just open it in my browser. And then I look through the table of contents, and it has R-controlled vowels. It has diphthongs. It has SHCH. So let's go to page 32. Closer. I'm getting close. And I take a screenshot, and there's for the students who have lateralized SH or CH sounds or S sounds, I screenshot it, and then I put it in my Google slide, and they can read the word, and they can practice the word, and they can read the word to their parents, or they can practice with me, and they can take it home. And it's all free from Z Library. So this I use every day. There's other things here like YouTube, there's a proper noun song. You can click on this, you have access, you should have access to it. If you don't right now, then I will open up the slide deck so you have access to click on it. The next page is the things that I use the most. Match the Memory is fun, Jeopardy is fun. These are all just online games that you can do remotely or in person. And it might sound like I'm talking about remote work, but it's my hope that you still use the computer while you're back in the classroom. I think that's the main takeaway is I'm hoping that computers go hand in hand even when you're back in the classroom face to face. All right, these are going to be quick because I don't want to keep you too long, but slide number 21 is how will schools change in the future? Uh, According to the experts, technology is here to stay in a blended learning fashion. Students learn in part through the delivery of content and instruction by digital and online media, and it gives them control over time, place, path, and pace. I love that quote. Um, New York City is doing a pilot of doing away with doing away with emergency closures like snow days. So they're taking data to see whether New York is changing for that. And, you know, for California, it might be fog. You know, 2 years ago before COVID, where I was working, it was a delayed start because of fog. But what if you could go online and it was, you know, you didn't have to miss a beat? More cooperative learning, more play, less testing, and emphasis on emotional health and resiliency. Slide 22. Just like I said, less testing, more play, more attention to social emotional. You can read this on your own. 23 is what I keep saying myself, is teachers will become coaches and mentors, teaching students how to find the material or teaching them about something and then letting them choose and run free with the information. You know, that may not apply to math, but there are plenty of areas that you can coach the students. And it says, don't worry, research consistently suggests that students learn less in fully virtual environments. So in-person teacher-led instruction simply has too many advantages, but adding online tools actually helps everyone. Slide number 24. Again, this is the justification from the First American School District survey that computers are cost efficient for the students. World Economic Forum on slide number 25 is we need to educate our students in an interconnected world in a collective way. So everything that I found from educational leaders believe that in the classroom, computers will be our future. Hybrid learning and I don't know, they all say the same thing: social emotional, computers, hybrid learning. And then the last slide before questions or comments is, could a pandemic as devastating in scope occur in the future? And scarily so, they say 100% certain that another global crisis will happen. But the positive thing is that we will be more prepared for any future crisis with our schooling system because of what we experienced with the pandemic. So we have learned so much about the systems and structure. and that can only make things better for the future. So if you have any questions or comments, you can always go to Margaret's Corner at therapytravelers.com. It's one of the drop-down menus. And I'd love to hear what you have to say. And I would love to help you if you have any questions along the way. And then the last slide is if you want a certificate of attendance, just send me a message and I can write it out and send you a PDF of it. And I hope that wasn't too fast. I tried to keep it within an hour because sometimes it's a whole lot of information going in, but I shared the slide deck. So if you want to go over it, read it again, my notes at the bottom, and message me if you have any questions. I thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Margaret. Well done. Well done as usual.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And just so everybody knows, this webinar will be up on our website within the next few days. So if you have any colleagues or clients, people within your district that could really learn from this as well, it will be a great link. So we'll be sending out an email blast just informing people of where to find it. If for some reason you do not get an email blast, do know that it will be at the top of the remote resources page on our website. Give us till probably no later than Friday. It will be up there. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.